So today's client is Logan, and Logan is a guy who likes to game. He's currently playing titles like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, League of Legends, CSGO, and the occasional Destiny 2 and GTA 5. He's playing those games on his current monitor, which is 1920 by 1080, pretty easy to drive. However, it is a 144Hz panel, so despite the slightly lower resolution, he is trying to target higher frame rates to get that buttery smooth image. Now his system is actually a pretty good system, all things considered, but it does lack a bit of power if he's really trying to target that 144Hz refresh rate, and it definitely lacks character or any kind of cosmetic flair required to produce that wow effect. So we're gonna try to fix those two things today, but let's take a look at his system right now and see what he's working with. All right, so this is his build. I'm deeming it the Loganite, and by the end of this episode, we're gonna transform it into the Loganator. Maybe it's too early in the morning and my ideas are just worse than usual. Just roll with me here. So the Loganite is currently encased inside of a Cooler Master Master Box 5, which is an okay case. I do like the fact that it's got a full front mesh panel. That's nice. But like I said, there's no wow effect here. It's a pretty basic / boring looking case in my opinion. It's more or less a box. I guess that's where part of the name comes from. We do have an acrylic side panel as opposed to tempered glass, which definitely dates it a bit. So I'm gonna remove the side panel so I don't have to look at it anymore. So you can see the inside of the Loganator isn't the worst you've ever seen, but it's certainly nothing that you would turn your head and glance at twice. Cable management is it's okay in some places, but then just like you've got sort of really loose areas like this, or the cables coming off the CPU cooler just hanging out like someone's entrails. At the very least, it looks like he's routed the cables through the appropriate cutouts in the case. They're just not tidied up very well. Also, I think I found like half of a chicken nugget in this system somewhere. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but there definitely was one here because we got so much ketchup and mustard to go along with it. I was kidding about the chicken nugget. Logan's not an animal, but he does have some pretty nasty ketchup and mustard cables from his existing power supply, which is the one part that I'm actually not sure what it is because he's not even sure what it is. All he knows is that it's 650 watts and I can't see it from either side of the case, so we'll just have to wait until we pull it out. But yeah, these cables gotta go. I mean, just look at this. What is this? Mustard and water cables now? What the hell? We'll definitely have to work on that, but let's talk about the main specs here. We do have a Ryzen 7 2700X, which is a fantastic CPU. We've got 8 cores, 16 threads, the highest clock speeds that you'll find in the Ryzen 2000 series, and it's a really versatile option if you happen to be doing more than just gaming with your system, which, let's face it, these days most of us are. So right off the bat, we're working with a really strong CPU that's currently being cooled by the included Wraith Prism cooler. It's actually probably the best stock cooler ever made, to be honest, but I can't help but wonder how much cooler, quieter, or sexier we could get with an aftermarket option. Our memory's in solid shape as well, with 32 gigs of Corsair Vengeance LPX DDR4. Unfortunately, it's only at 2400 speed. Having said that, this is already like a really good kit, and I don't necessarily think he needs to replace it just because it's not as fast as I'd like it to be. Once the Loganator is ready to fly though, I am going to try to overclock the kit, potentially to 3200 speed. That would be ideal, but even if we can only take it to 3000, that should still bump up his frame rate slightly. Our motherboard is the ASRock X370 Killer SLI. It is ATX form factor. I believe from looking here, it looks like a 6+2 phase power design, and it seems to have pretty standard connectivity for what you'd expect on an X370 board, particularly M.2 slots, none of which are being occupied right now. I'm pretty sure this is a mid-range board, which means we're completely out of the super cheapo territory, which is great, and the board still looks to be in really good condition. I mean, look at the I/O shroud, it still has the plastic on it. Our GPU is sagging, first of all. Wow, look at that sag, yikes. But unholy levels of sagginess aside, this is the Msi Rx 580 8G Armor. It's not the sexiest, it's not the prettiest card, there's no backplate, you kind of just see the raw PCB there. It's a relatively budget looking card, even though it's fairly mid-range. As most of us know, the RX 580 is a great contender for 1080p gaming at high or very high settings. Bear in mind though that Logan is trying to take advantage of his 144Hz panel, and I don't think this is quite capable of hitting those types of frame rates in most games at that resolution, unless you really crank down the quality settings, but then you're sacrificing quite a bit. In terms of gaming performance, the GPU is definitely the weakest link in the bunch. I think CPU, memory, and motherboard are really strong, but this guy is just not cutting it for me, so you smell that? You smell that in the air? It smells like an upgrade. Our storage solution isn't the best either. We only have one drive in the Loganite, and that's a WD Blue mechanical hard drive. How is Logan rocking 32 gigs of RAM and a 2700X and still booting off of this thing? I just Last couple things I want to point out here is that we do have an optical drive that Logan says he rarely uses and would be perfectly fine with omitting in his new and improved rig. And that brings me to my last point, which is the case. I do think we're going to need a case upgrade here because despite it being perfectly functional, it just doesn't have the most attractive interior. I mean, even if we redid all the cable management, you don't have any cable grommets. We've got this half-ass power supply shroud that doesn't hide our ugly drive cage. We've got an unsightly 5¼ inch bay up there, and there's just not a whole lot of style in this case to begin with. Did I also mention that while it does have a full mesh front panel, it doesn't not have any intake fans. I don't know what's up with that. What's up with that, Logan? What's going on? In fact, the only case fan he has in this thing is a 140mm exhaust at the back. You know, it's pretty damn dusty in here too. I think it's been a while since this build got some TLC. So I think I'm gonna kick off this rebuild first and foremost with a case upgrade. There are a couple things that I was looking for in a new case for Logan. For starters, I wanted something that was more modern looking, that looks like it came from this year and not 5 years ago. So tempered glass side panel, full-size power supply shroud, and more updated features like RGB lighting and a more exciting front panel I/O. And holy moly, do I have the case for Logan. It is the Dark Base 700 from Be Quiet. This is what we're going with. This would be a great time to mention that this video is sponsored by Be Quiet, and they've agreed to help me help Logan build the best system we can. So huge shout out to them for making this build possible. I really do think this chassis is gonna tick all the boxes that we feel are lacking in the existing case. So very excited to be building with that today. Pretty much the only other, whoa, hold on. How did this get here? What, Dark Rock Pro 4? Wow, Be Quiet products just keep popping up everywhere. I guess this is a sign that we should probably upgrade his stock cooler to the super premium and effective Dark Rock Pro 4 250 watt TDP. That's more than enough to handle the 2700X. This thing can certainly cool some of the hottest CPUs on the market, and it just looks so damn good while doing it. So we're gonna start off working with these two components, and this build just keeps looking worse the more I look at it. So let's tear it apart. Moving right along here, we've got our motherboard installed with the CPU cooler. It fits perfectly. A couple things to note here though. While this is a lovely case, we do have less of a mesh front panel than we did on the Masterbox 5. You can see we have ventilation strips on either side of the case, but I just wanted to make sure that we have ample airflow going through here. So apart from the two included Silent Wings 3 fans, these are 140mm fans. They come included with the case, one at the front, one at the rear. We're gonna be adding two more. They have a 6-pole fan motor that reduces vibration significantly, and they are fluid dynamic bearings, so they're gonna last a very long time. We're gonna pop two of those in, but not without a little bit of bling. So these are the Fantex Halos Lux. These are digital RGB fan frames. You basically slap them on whatever high-performing fans you want, and it provides some high-quality RGB lighting on top of them. I'm probably gonna put one of these guys at the front just to assist this fan, particularly because it's gonna be directly across from the CPU cooler. That way it's getting fresh intake there. And then I'll probably put the other fan up top here because bear in mind we have two front fans, and the Dark Rock Pro 4 has two fans as well. So I just wanna make sure that we have proper exhaust and that we're getting enough hot air out of the case. Now, upon taking apart the Loganite, I did actually get to see what kind of power supply we're working with. It is an 18 600 watt. I thought it was 650, but it's a 600 watt unit from ATNG, which I have never worked with before. I have no idea how reliable or efficient this power supply is, even though it does say 80 plus. It seems to be a pretty entry-level unit, and I don't want to take any chances. So we're going to be upgrading his PSU situation to a straight Power 11 750 watt unit, courtesy of Be Quiet again, of course. And this is a fantastic power supply, 80 plus gold efficiency, fully modular design, and I've always liked the fact that these ship with Be Quiet's in-house fan built right in. Coincidentally, this also gets rid of our ketchup and mustard problem because these are black flat cables. That being said, they're not the nicest looking in terms of show build quality, so I kind of wanted to upgrade those even further with a set of Thermaltake's TT Mod sleeve cable extensions. These are actually really nice. I've used these plenty of times in the past. They come with cable combs, and they feature the sort of nylon material that's just so good for cable training. It keeps its shape phenomenally well. These are black and white, as you can see, so we kind of have more or less a black and white themed build going on here. Predominantly black, but the motherboard opens the door to us having a two-tone color scheme. So black and white, tried and true combo, you can't go wrong there. And I did want to upgrade his storage solution. Of course, we can't have him booting off of mechanical storage anymore. So here we have a WD Black SN750 500 gig NVMe M.2 SSD. This is PCIe Gen 3, no point in Gen 4 because the motherboard doesn't support it, but once we do a clean install of Windows 10 on here, it's going to significantly improve his boot times and loading times for anything he stores onto it. The drive's capable of just south of 3,500 megabytes per second read. You can see this model is the one that comes included with the heatsink, which is great because we don't currently have any on the motherboard. So that'll help us prevent some thermal throttling, and I think that's it. Let's carry on. All right, the the build's coming along swimmingly. We have one more part to go though, and that would be the GPU. Now we could just stick the same old RX 580 in there and call it a day, but this is Pimp My Rig, people. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop the GPU like that. This is a great card for 1080p gaming, but as I mentioned, we're trying to hit slightly higher frame rates, so I decided to upgrade him to the Gigabyte RTX 2060 Super Gaming OC 3X White 8G. We have 8 gigs of VRAM on this sucker. If you guys remember, the RTX 2060 Super is pretty much in line with RTX 2070 grade performance, which is, as most of you know, significantly faster than the still respectable RX 580. I think this is going to be a really welcome upgrade for Logan, and as you probably saw in the name of the card, we got him the white model. All right, let's pop this sucker in, do some cable management, and wrap this build up. Build came out beautiful and everything looks great, except you may have noticed a couple things. So for starters, why aren't these Halo Lux RGB fans lighting up? Well, that's because I'm an idiot. I overlooked the fact that this board does not have, it's been a while since I worked with X370, guys. I overlooked the fact that it doesn't have digital RGB headers. It does have 3 12-volt 4-pin headers, but there are no 5-volt 3-pin headers on board. So the fan frames can't light up right now. But I left them installed anyway, so in the event that Logan upgrades his motherboard down the line or wants to add some sort of adapter for digital RGB, he can still take advantage of the beautiful lighting that they emit. Apart from that though, I did add an RGB LED strip at the last minute just to give us a little bit more illumination because it is fairly dark in here otherwise. It's currently configured to white just like the video card and the motherboard. Of course, he can change that to whatever he wants. The case's beautiful trim LED is also configured to white at the moment, but that's also RGB. I really love how the lighting just outlines the shape of the case, and it really just gives it this super badass stance that you don't see with most chassis. Overall though, I'm really happy with how the build turned out. I'm super excited for Logan to see it. I think he's gonna flip, especially when he sees that upgraded GPU and just how much better the system looks than his old one. So he's on his way right now. Let's go ahead and see what he thinks. All right, Logan, I got you in here. How's it going?
Pretty good, how are you?
I'm good, I'm good. I see you survived without a PC for a week. Congratulations, how was it?
Since I obviously was working last weekend, like the whole weekend, I wasn't planning on having it anyway, so it wasn't terrible.
That's good. I'm glad you were busy during that time. I've asked people before after taking their PCs for a week, half expecting them to be like, oh, you know, without technology, I just went outside and learned to appreciate being disconnected. But most of the time they're just bored and miserable. So I'm glad that wasn't the case for you. Directing our attention over here though, do you have any idea what's under this sheet?
The only thing I do know, because we spoke about it because you had to ask me, was whether or not to put an SSD in the system. Other than that, I really have no idea.
Okay, that means I was good at giving you as little information as possible.
Yeah.
So are you ready to see your new system?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, dude. Without further ado, this is the Loganator.
Damn. Holy crap. Wow, that actually looks so sick. Well, it's silent now.
Yeah.
I definitely will say it's completely silent now.
It's silent, it's way quieter than your old system, but it has way more fans, a ton more airflow going through it. 2 of the case fans are wired up to the fan controller that's built into the case, and that fan controller is currently at max RPM.
Dang.
It's whisper quiet.
Yeah.
And it stays cool. I think max CPU temps after like 20 minutes of Unigine Heaven 4.0 was like 60C. Granted, it's not a super CPU intensive benchmark, but I've seen CPUs get a lot hotter than that. GPU is hovering in the mid 70s. I did overclock your memory. Managed to bump it up to 2800. I tried 3000, but it just wasn't working out. But we were able to up it up about 400 megahertz for you.
Sweet.
So you might have also realized that your graphics card looks a little different.
Yeah, a lot different.
It's actually an RTX 2060 Super.
Dang.
Which is a lot higher than what your RX 580 was capable of.
Yeah.
The other thing I should mention that you might have missed, maybe not, is there's now an M.2 SSD in there.
Sweet.
Do you like the way it looks overall, cosmetically?
I couldn't have imagined it better myself.
Awesome.
Actually, definitely gonna go try it out as soon as I can.
Awesome, dude.
So.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to let me transform your rig.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching this video. Be sure to toss a like on it if you enjoyed it.
get subscribed for more tech stuff coming at you really soon, and I will see you in the next video. Cool, man. But you do really, off camera though, you really like it.
It actually looks sick.
Because now that the cameras aren't rolling, you'd be like, it sucks, I hate this. Do it over.
It looks sick.
Awesome.
Like actually.
Phew.